student volunteer to introduce Dr. Y.R. Satyaji Rao to the audience here.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Good morning, one and all. I am pleased and honored to introduce our guest, Dr. Y.R. Satyaji Rao Garu. Dr. Y.R. Satyaji Rao Garu graduated in civil engineering from Osmania University, Hyderabad, Andhra Pradesh in the year 1990. Post-graduated in hydrology and water resources engineering from Center for Water Resources, Anna University, Chennai, Tamil Nadu. He got awarded PhD from Department of Civil Engineering, Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. He had joined as scientist at National Institute of Hydrology, Roorkee in the year 1992 and presently acting as head of Delta Regional Center, National Institute of Hydrology, Kakinada since 2004. He is having 25 years research experience in the field of hydrology, especially on catchment water balance models, hydrological monitoring network design, rainfall runoff modeling, groundwater quality evaluation and modeling. He is having hands-on experiences on application of remote sensing, GIS, and artificial neutral work tools. Important research projects completed are East Flowing River Catchment Balance water balances, establishment rainfall recharge coefficients in Mahanadi, Godavari, Krishna, and Pannar deltas. Nitrate transport modeling in coastal aquifers due to faulty septic tanks, hydrological time series modeling, estimation of reservoir sedimentation rate using remote sensing technique. He is acting as member in Regional Committee on Floods for AP, Telangana, Tamil Nadu and Pondicherry, appointed by CWC Government of India. Reviewed many technical papers and DST projects, guided MTech projects and acted as external examiner PhD and MTech for various universities. Worked as adjunct faculty at San Diego State University, USA under UNDP project and also selected for junior fellowship of IWMI Sri Lanka. Published 125 technical papers in journals and conferences, completed 20 in-house funded projects and co-PI in various sponsored research projects. He completed consultancy projects for GMR, Bangalore, APGENCO, Andhra Pradesh, TS, GENCO, Telangana, AP State Irrigation Department, etc. Conducted many training programs on various facets of hydrology at NIH Kakinada for field engineers. He is presently working on groundwater salinity source identification in Godavari Delta under National Hydrology Project, Government of India. Thank you for having you here, sir.
Thank you, Monica. Sir, I now request to take over the session, sir.
Is it fine? Screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But your camera was off, sir, I think.
Okay, okay. Let me. Yeah, now?
Now it is okay.
Yeah, first of all, good morning, all of you. Just about 2 minutes to 12 o'clock. Let me thank Professor V. Srinivasulu for giving an opportunity to share some of the research studies we have completed at National Institute of Hydrology, Kakinada, and other regional centers, especially on this particular topic. I'll also would like to say Happy New Year for all the participants who are associated in this particular training program. So with this, I have a time of around 1 hour 15 minutes up to 1:15. I try to share with especially on this specialized topic on stormwater flood modeling using remote sensing and GIS. Nowadays, any distributed modeling explicitly, it is not at all required saying that we have used remote sensing and GIS. It is a part and parcel of the any distributed hydrological modeling approach. Invariably, we have to use these tools. Without GIS framework or without any remote sensing input, it is nowadays it is highly impossible to tackle with the especially distributed modeling and other things. So the remote sensing and GIS become a integral part of hydrological modeling, where you deal with the various thematic maps. It may be a land use, land cover, or it may be DEM or a drainage pattern, whatever you call it as. So we have to depend on these tools. Without these two tools, it is very difficult to handle the data. So this is the order of the day, where the remote sensing and GIS has become a vital tool. And because of these two tools, we can better understanding of the natural processes, data gathering, whether it is spatially or temporally. So with these two inputs advantage, we can really attempt some of the real-time problems to solve to an extent that to manage our water resources. So the main 5-day faculty development program is focused on remote sensing and GIS application in water resource management. Certainly, these two tools are very vital. Okay. With these opening remarks, I would like to thank my colleague Venkat Ramana, who has associated all my urban hydrological studies, and regional center partner, National Hydrology Project, who have provided the funding facility for carry out all these case studies which I am going to present, and also the state departments who are the supporters for these studies, because in fact they have requested to initiate these studies. So those case studies I would like to share with you in this 1 hour 15 minutes, right? This is then a picture which shows the National Institute of Hydrology, which is located at Roorkee. As you know, most of the participant, it is within the IIT Roorkee campus, and we have a regional centers at Jammu, Bhopal, Belgaum, and Kakinada, Patna, and Guwahati. And the jurisdiction of the Kakinada Center is the entire East Coast. Okay, for more details, you can see our website also for any published papers, reports, or whatever case studies I am going to present. All the full details are available in the internet. As you know, the golden rule of hydrology, this is the principle where we work. Entire our philosophy or models, or you name it, anything, follow this particular simple principle: water flows downhill. Okay, so under the force of gravity, natural flow, it takes care about water flows down to hill, but sometimes it may move up through a system via capillary action in the soil. I think most of the people know what is the capillary action. And then hydraulic pressure in groundwater aquifers through springs and all. Sometimes you can able to see some of the aquifers, there are wells continuously flowing without pumping any water. So that is called as a hydraulic pressure of groundwater and aquifers. And evapotranspiration, as you know, most of the people, that it is upcoming water from the subsurface. So these are all the basic principles we talk around. And look at this, I think you must have seen many hydrological cycle diagrams. Where I want to insist in this particular diagram is...
Sorry, sir, sorry to drop you, sir. Your PPT is not moving, so I think still we are seeing only first slide only.
Oh, really?
Ah.
Is it due to some lag or no?
So same thing with you also. Yes, sir.
Now, which slide is displayed at your end?
So only the first one only.
No, I have already went to 4th slide.
No, we cannot. Harsha?
Now also first slide only?
Yes, sir.
I don't know.
So please, I think do one thing, sir. Please stop sharing again. You just restart it, sir. I think. Now it is okay. Now we can see the third slide.
Now I am making into full screen. Let us see. Okay.
Okay.
Let me try in this mode only. Next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now.
Now it's okay, sir. Okay.
Oh, this mode it is shifting, but let me share my full screen also. Then also we'll try. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Now.
Now we could not see the slide mode, presentation mode.
Now.
But we can see the, I mean, different slides, but not in a full screens.
Yeah. Why it is so?
We can move it. It's moving, but
Open share tray.
We can zoom it on our screen.
okay, that is okay. Another option, but
Okay, without wasting much time. Now
yeah,
you
you can
can
go
zoom it
ahead, sir.
yourself.
This is okay. This is also okay. Yeah.
You can zoom it yourself if
Yes,
you.
yes. That can be done.
Otherwise, let me also zoom it.
Yeah. Now it's fine.
Shall I continue under this mode?
Yes, sir. Continue, sir, please.
Okay.
It is perfectly okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah, fine. Thank you. So with this diagram, what I want to say is when you talk about stormwater flooding, as you know, stormwater is nothing but rainwater. Why we call it as a stormwater? When the rainfall excess converts into runoff, that particular amount of the rainfall we are talking about, that is called a particular storm which create directly runoff, that we call it as a stormwater. So the moment rain falls on the surface, when you are talking about urban terrain, when the top surface within 20 centimeter is impervious, what will happen? Immediately the overland flow takes place, then slowly it get converted into runoff. Okay. If you have a natural surface and having a good infiltration, then it will convert to the deep percolation and it go into the groundwater recharge. Okay, here the blue color line indicates the groundwater table, where we are very much interested in the process of first 20 centimeters basically, because the moment if exceeds the infiltration capacity of the soil, then overland flow takes place. That particular overland flow converted into runoff and it immediately joins into the stormwater drains, whether it may be the roadside drains or if it is properly designed, and immediately it joins into the stormwater drains. Otherwise, what will happen? It just overflows on the roads. If it is not connected, accumulate in the stormwater drains and started coming oozing out the water from those drains through manholes. That's what it is, a common phenomena which we can see in every city or town or whatever you call it as. Okay, so how to tackle this type of situation? So with the advantage of all our tools, whether hydrological modeling or remote sensing, GIS tools and all those things, that is our challenging task. So how to manage this stormwater runoff whenever you get excessive rainfall? Is it possible for us to arrest 100% or not? If so, how much percent extent we can really tackle the situation? Or somebody can, okay, if you have seen very recently the Hyderabad floods, is it possible to control the floods of 100 years return period of the rainfall? Just is impossible. Even being a civil engineers, we cannot design a stormwater drains for 100 years return period of the rainfall. This is a huge task for us. So there should be some trade-off. Okay, that is very extreme events that able to control any flood situation. Only thing is we will work on how to minimize the losses, whether it's a human losses or infrastructure losses, etc. So an engineering perspective, we should fully aware that if similar type of rainfall occurs in future again, what could be the scenario? Yes, that much we can ensure 100% that if the same event repeats in next year, what could be the inundated areas and which are all the infrastructure going to be submerged, which are all the water bodies or reservoirs under risk. So these things are very, very necessary. Now, even now people are working. If it's a riverine floods, we have a central water commission. They have over a period of time, they have come out with the very nice prediction models. So the moment if Godavari river is getting flooded, 1 week lead time, 1 week in advance, they are predicting all the water levels along the river. So that particular warnings able to understand by the common man who are living either side of the bank or downstream of the bank. This is the art of forecasting mechanism, which is technical to the common man. You see, predictions forecasting should be thoroughly people should able to digest, otherwise they won't take any action. Then we have to forcefully evacuate those people from those flooded areas. So this is the system where one side a high skilled technical people are working, or they are giving a forecast in terms of layman's language. We have to give a predictions or in terms of water levels or in terms of a submergible area, the so and so village going to be inundated within 3 days because upstream floods are coming like this. So they have a beautiful mechanism of prediction of riverine floods. Whereas in urban floods, we have a hardly this mechanism is existing in India especially. Why? Because in urban areas, most of the people, more than 50% are migrated people. They do not have any idea about the local hydrological system, which is the water bodies connected to where and which are all the major nalas, which are all the major streams. And those people, they are not aware at all. So this is where one of the issue, even though somebody gives a warnings and all, they are not able to understand. So this is the one of the constraint in urban flood forecasting, and their understanding about this forecasting. Even though they're all educated and employees, still there is some lag to convert into a professional way that we have to convert into different way. Okay, this particular road is going to be inundated within 6 hours or within 8 hours. They can understand in those languages only. So forecast is one aspect, and disseminating the forecasting mechanism to the common man is another challenging task, and people should have a response to that. That is the most important aspect. So with this background, the infiltration is the one of the most crucial factor, and this will be dealt in terms of modeling, like they call it as a impervious layer, pervious layer, what is the capacity of infiltration, and all these things will come subsequently in these discussions. Okay, next. Is it visible now? Now we are talking about climate change. One is the big way it is coming into the natural hydrological cycle, and sometimes it is disturbing also. Okay, more intense storms with more flooding and extreme winds, and there are so many predictions about hydrological cycle, whether it is a sea level rise or it is floods or droughts, whatever you call it as. Extreme hydrological events are going to come in future. That is the one of the projected climatic change on the hydrological perspective. Look at this particular diagram here. We have classified into various themes here. Impact of climate change. I'm talking about in the perspective of stormwater flooding. So then it will come to this angle here. Change in runoff pattern. That is one of the most important aspect into that. And another important point here I will highlight, decrease in number of rainy days. That is the most important in the hydrological perspective. And another important is increasing rainfall intensity and change in monsoon pattern. These things are very, very important when you talk about stormwater flooding. Why it is so important? Let us have a small example. Suppose I will give a small example. In the month of August, total rainfall is say 20 centimeters, 200 mm. And these 20 centimeter rainfall used to occur earlier 14 days. Now same amount of rainfall occurring in 7 days. So now you can visualize which event is more beneficial for us. As a hydrologist or water resource and expert, he always prefer the 20 centimeter rainfall should occur in a 14 days instead of 7 days. Because even though it is occurring in 7 days, suppose all your water bodies, reservoirs are filled up with the antecedent rainfall events, then that case what happens, you cannot store this water, or you do not have a time to infiltrate into the subsurface. Simply it overflows and joins into the natural repressions or water bodies or rivers, drains, and ultimately it travels some other area very quickly. So we as a hydrologist, we prefer a rainfall, a 20 centimeter rainfall which is occurring 14 days is better than the same thing occurring in 7 days. So due to this climate change, you can see if statistical person, if somebody is analyzing the rainfall pattern, they will come out a statement that monthly rainfall in August last 30 years is constant almost. There is no significant trend of August rainfall. But as a hydrologist, he will analyze these 20 centimeter rainfall days, how many days it is taking. So that is most important for us. Okay. Similarly, increasing Hyderabad flood, all of a sudden 2020 we got 100 years return period. What was the reason for that? Okay. Even if the same rainfall occurred in 50 years back, definitely this type of inundation, this type of flood magnitude would have not occurred, because those time the land use land cover was totally different. So when you tackle with the stormwater flooding, one should fully aware about these activities. One most important issue is increasing in rainfall intensity, decreasing in number of rainy days, and changes in land use land cover. These things are most important, and increase in extreme events. So with this background, I'm not talking about more on in terms of quality in this lecture, because in outside the India, other countries, they equally give priority for urban runoff quantity as well as a quality. If this type of urban runoff quality is joining into the freshwater lakes, that huge freshwater body is going to be contaminated. So therefore, they are giving equal importance of the urban runoff as well as urban runoff quality aspect also. But in our Indian scenario, right now we are struggling to tackle the urban runoff, how to manage the stormwater runoff, whether it is a diversion is a easy method, or how to cope up with that. Whether our designs are underestimated or overestimated, all will things come into the picture, right? So with this background, similarly, if you put in a different perspective, impact of climate change on water resource and hydrological cycle, you can clearly see the scenarios. Okay, this is the processes which are associated, which is mentioned in the blue color, and in terms hydrological parameters, what will have, both are interrelated. Suppose increasing atmospheric water vapor content leads to increased precipitation. Change in precipitation pattern will lead to increased risk of floods and droughts. Change in evapotranspiration, soil moisture and runoff, which is having implications on agriculture and water supply. Change in groundwater recharge, implications for groundwater withdrawal. So this is how it is connected. A simple, a small changing in hydrological cycle will inherently affect the various processes in terms various parameters, and ultimately it reflect our day-to-day activities. So these things are most important, especially sea level rise, especially in coastal towns, especially Mumbai, Calcutta, and all those things. They are struggling with a increased seawater intrusion, coastal populations. All these are all the affected areas. So one should try to visualize what extent the climate change will affect our hydrological parameters. Similarly, the temperature is also one of the very important aspect. Mean annual air temperature rose at 0.57 degrees centigrade per 100 years during 1981 to 1997. This is a very interesting statistics. Then somebody said that, okay, 100 years, 0.57 degrees centigrade, what will happen? Nothing will happen. This is very minor, but it is not so. You see, I will give another example to visualize the temperature change. If in a human body, normal temperature is 97.8 Fahrenheit, if I am right. Okay, if it reaches to 100, then entire human body metabolism will be disturbed, and you will get headache, fever, etc. Temperature is very small, but entire system collapses. Similarly, if Earth temperature rose by half a degree or 1 degree, you can't imagine such type of impact which takes place in terms of flora, fauna, and all climatic parameters and all those things. That's why the researchers much more worried about this temperature increases of the Earth. So this is the most important. With this background, now where we want to work with the hydrological models. A hydrologic model is a simplification of a real-world system that aids in understanding, predicting, and managing water resources. Both the flow and quality of water are commonly studied using the hydrological models. So any hydrological model is capable of, tackling your quantity and quality issues. That's what we are working on that. Remember that hydrological model is not an only solution. It is one of the solution to understand our system or to manage your resources. So it is something like in a normal person, engineers, we used to use the calculator most frequently in our day-to-day calculations. Why calculator is required? Calculator is a tool where we can perform arithmetic operations very fast and most correctly, I can say. With these two advantages, we go for a calculator. Similarly, in hydrological models are such a tools which uses remote sensing GIS as a input parameters. These models will also help us to understand the relation between various hydrological processes. Okay, then how they are dependent on each other. If you increase rainfall by 10%, what could be the changes in other parameters? So such type of analysis we can do at a reasonable accuracy. That's why we are using this tool as a hydrological model. Especially today I'm talking this can be applied in various domains, but today at present our domain is stormwater flood modeling purpose. We are talking about these hydrological models. So in that perspective only we are talking. Let us see what type of hydrological models are available with us, and for stormwater flood modeling, which could be the best option for us. So in that perspective, once just we have a glance about the hydrological models. So as you know, historically it started from the analog models, then conceptual models, then later on statistical models and stochastic models. So the latest development is taking place, especially in the statistical models. So dealing with the big data and so many cloud and so many people are talking about so many things about, all comes under statistical models. And under that, the artificial neural network, fuzzy logic, one, you name it, any data driven model that comes as soft computing models where we can handle the large data very effectively, and non-linear data, all this can be handled very nicely with this. But the real hydrologist should have a thorough understanding of the catchment or the processes involved. For that circumstances, distributed hydrological models are the one of the best option, wherein the remote sensing and GIS plays a very, very vital role. So today I'm going to cover a distributed model application in stormwater flood modeling aspect. I'm not going to be talk all about other models, but in this class, I'm focusing on distributed hydrological models, which uses as a remote sensing GIS is the major tool for the successful completion of the model. So what is the difference between the lumped and distributed models? This is the lumped model. So you have the catchment over here in the middle, and you have input parameters, rainfall and evapotranspiration. At the catchment outlet, you have the runoff. Okay, you are talking about only a few parameters, and what is happening within the catchment, we are not bothered. We want to have a catchment outlet or any interested point at one location only. That is called popularly as a lumped model. Then thereafter, after development of some hypotheses, some concepts, multiple linear reservoir concept has come. That is called 2D distributed model. With the advantage of GIS and all, we have today with us 3D distributed modeling approach. So everywhere you will get the information on grid wise. So first top layer is the rainfall grid wise. Same grid continues up to the bottom, and then infiltration, overland flow, total infiltration. So with this advantage of the information which are available and the grid pattern, that is very, very useful for hydrological modeling purposes. And among that, the DEM makes a very, very unique feature. As I said at the beginning, most of the flow pattern follows the slope through the gravity. With those two advantages, we can see here. Surface shape determines the water behavior. Characteristics of surface DEMs like slope aspect, delineation of the drainage system, catchment boundary, subcatchment, stream network. Then also to quantify those variables, we need to have a soil moisture, flow times, catchment response, etc. Can you imagine our very old engineers earlier? They used to work on hydrology from the Survey of India topo sheets, where they will get the drainage pattern. From that, they try to estimate the drainage density, what is the first order length of the slope. That time, before this remote sensing and GIS advantage, what they used to have curvimeter, planimeter, and all the stuff to get the catchment area. They used to work with the hand on a Survey of India topographical maps. Now the advantage of DEM, we can do it entire work within no time. This is the one of the biggest advantage in the water resources, handling of our DEMs. If you get a better accuracy of the DEM, then you definitely come out with the good accuracy of your quantification of the runoff, or it is a sediment or any other parameters also. So these are all some of the DEM based thematic maps which we can derive in a GIS framework very easily. Apart from those parameters or thematic maps, we also have to have the soil information, geology information, land use, and artificial drainage. Natural drainage, you will get it from the DEM, but especially an artificial drainage like stormwater drains, sewers, and all those things, we have certain limitations, because you cannot get these artificial drainages very clearly in the public domain DEMs. So this is the one of the limitation on artificial drainage. Otherwise, the rest of the things we can handle it very nicely. If any hydrological model, we have the two set of parameters, input parameters and output parameters. And input parameter, basically we have a precipitation and suspended load or pollutant, and we have outputs like stream discharge, water vapor, groundwater recharge, and pollutants. Okay, now I made a small attempt, especially with this type of gathering where the most of the research scholars, faculty members are associating in this faculty development program. And I try to put some of the very popular models which are available commercially, public domain in entire the world. So these are all some popular hydrological models. Anybody is interested, you can Google it, and you know better that what is the purpose of this particular software. If you know a bit about all these softwares, then you can really choose depend upon the circumstances and the project which you are working and situation where you are working, where you want to use as the modeling as a tool to solve the real time, real life problems. So for that, this slide is very useful. Okay, there are some models like HECRAS, HECRA, GeoRAS, all, GIS based softwares mostly. So some of the things which I have highlighted in red color is the purpose where you can straight away pick up the things. So we are interested in more on here, urban flood and sediment and etc. This is SWMM model where we can see in subsequently some case studies using this model. And the XP-SWM is the commercial product of the public domain SWMM model. Okay, so these two other models are used for various purposes in hydrological investigations. Okay, next. Look at the situation of the urban flooding scenarios from 1970 to 2025. You can see the red spots are increasing, especially not only in India, many other places. Why I'm showing this particular figure, look at this carefully. Multiple and uncertain drivers for future change. These are all the changes which are going to come in future because of these changes, and we are getting a transient shocks versus chronic stresses. Shocks already we got it. One shock recently, Hyderabad flood is a big shock for us. Entire the planning engineers or decision makers, the thought process have changed now. Okay, they realized the importance of the water bodies and connectivity between water bodies, importance of the stormwater drains, how to divert the flood water during extreme events. So each natural event will change our thought process. Okay, earlier we have not considered our climate change scenarios in our designs. Now whoever is doing any hydrological designs, they put an eye on the projections which are available up to 2090, 2080. So that data also they are trying to put there in designs and validate it and check whether our designs are safe or not. Okay. Similarly, not only in urban floods, we are also getting a pollution perspective. Recently in Andhra Pradesh, West Godavari district, we got some shock on Eluru, near Eluru, all people got affected, and that everybody suspected on water. Initially, people said that is air pollution. Then people started saying that is a water pollution. So why these things are happening? Because still we have to understand the nature much more effectively with these latest tools and available data and all those things. Okay, so these are all the things which are very, very important. Extreme rainfall events, nutrient and pollution loading, that is unknowingly it is increasing exponentially in the surface water bodies and as well as groundwater, and urbanization effects, land use changes, socio-economic trends and climate change. Because of all these parameters, we are having a more stress on the natural resources, and even we are witnessing some of the disasters in recent times. For that purpose, it has become very popular. And these are all our experiences when we, after conducting a few case studies in cities like Chennai, Hyderabad and Patna, we got this type of very quick observations, which I would like to share with the participants here. No measurements on stormwater quantity. When you start working on modeling, no measurement, nothing, no data is available. Only hardly you will get a maps which talking about the cross section of existing drain. That's it. At particular rainfall event, what was the water level in the stormwater drain? Nobody monitors it. Okay. Then how you deal with that, when then we start working in indirect way of using hydraulic structures to get some quantity, information and all. Then in a city or in any town, there is no official information on flood prone areas of any municipal corporation or city like Hyderabad, Chennai. They should display it everywhere in that particular city that these are all the flood prone areas with respect to some rainfall events. So that they can themselves they realize, oh, our building is in flood prone area. Whenever rain comes, we should have a eye on the forecast mechanisms or some such type of maps should be widely displayed in schools, offices, everywhere in that city, because flood prone area information is very useful to the common public, that themselves they visualize where our house is located, where our office is located, where our school is located. So every city these maps are to be prepared. Okay, flood prone areas of urban areas, that is most important on that. In order to achieve that, we have to have a high resolution, DEMs are very much required. And during flooding, what will happen, even though I am talking about stormwater runoff alone, during high rainfall event, most of the water mix each other. Sewage water also come and join somewhere else. Wastewater, all of a sudden they release some water from some water body, or all mixing takes place. So that situation we have to handle very carefully. Then natural filling of the water bodies, temple tanks, reservoirs, that is also, I'm talking about reservoirs in the perspective of urban water bodies. Okay, and there is no information available on artificial groundwater recharge structures. People always say that whenever you will get a high rainfall, try to recharge into the groundwater. So can anybody say that how many recharge structures are available in the city, where those things are located, how much they could able to recharge? No, that type of statistics have yet to be collected and put it on the public domain. We can see that yes, this is the area where the lot of recharge is possible, artificial recharge. So therefore some urban runoff can be diverted to this area, because recharging is not everywhere, it is not possible because of the heterogeneity of subsurface layers. So this is one of the most important point. And never, I don't think any town is having a planning about stormwater reuse, conservation, and all the stuff. That is yet to be planned very effectively. And no forecast on urban floods. That's what I told at the beginning. Forecast is required for transport authorities, infrastructure development, government or public sector and other sector. That's what most important aspects. Because you're all faculty members, I would like to share one particular point in the lighter sense. When my son passed out 10th class, then immediately I got so many calls, SMS and all those things. They introduced themselves about the intermediate college, and at that time I really surprised how these people got my number, how my mobile is flooded with the information. So that is what whenever natural calamity is going to come, and all our mobiles should be get flooded with the information that wherever you are living, this is the you will get this type of rainfall or flood and all those things. Nowadays, I was very happy that whenever this thunderstorm predictions are coming into the mobile, some inquires or IMD people have made it some mechanism. So their small alert will come into my mobile. In your area, next coming 1 hour, 2 hour thunderstorms going to happen. I felt very happy to receive such type of alerts, which can save many people from natural incidents and etc. So that is the state of art, and people are transforming research results into the whatever possible way we can reach the common man. That is a challenging task. So let us have a small glance on the highest daily rainfall events, because it has become, after working in a couple of studies, I always record these highest rainfall events across the country, especially on South India and some popular cities, because this is the in Mumbai, can you imagine, in 2005 94.4 centimeter per day. we never recorded anywhere in India. So same rainfall occurred on suppose on Hyderabad, what could be the scenario? Can you imagine what will happen to Hyderabad? Last 2020 we got 32 centimeter per day. 32 centimeter could able to create a havoc in Hyderabad. Can you imagine if 4.42 centimeter day comes on the Hyderabad city? So these things are very much required. What is the historical, things are happening, how the intensity of the rainfall, coming more frequently, like in Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad. Very surprisingly, recently happened in Warangal also, in Telangana. So can you see 30 centimeter per day occurred in August 15th, 1908. And now 2020, 27 centimeter per day. Even less than that, but still it created a lot of flood. So if the same rainfall is occurring in the next 10 years, don't think the flood magnitude will be the same. It is depend upon various factors. That's why, so these things are very, very important for hydraulic designs of any stormwater or any hydraulic structures across the river, streams, and all those things. These things are very, very important. Historical data is very important, and climatic change projection data is also important. You have to integrate these two data and come out with the designs. Then another interesting point which I would like to highlight in this slide. First we'll read the bottom sentence, then we'll talk about the diagram. How one can say that today is rainy day? If daily rainfall is equal to 2.5 mm or more than 2.5 mm, then only we can say that today is the rainy day. Why it is required? Because rainy day we are counting, as I have given an example of in the month of August, how many rainy days. Okay, rainy day means the daily rainfall, if it is equal to or more than 2.5 mm, then we call it as the daily rainfall. Rainy day we can call it as. That is as per the IMD guidelines. Then another important point I want to share with the participants. Look at here this statement. 4/1/2021 8:30. That means yesterday 8:30 to 5/1/2020. Today 8:30. What was the last 24 hours rainfall, cumulative rainfall? That was example 20 mm has occurred. Then we will record in our notebooks, say that this 20 mm rainfall occurred on 5/1/2021. That's what we have to understand. Okay, it is not like what is today rainfall means. Last 24-hour rainfall we are taking as a today's rainfall. That is one of the important point to be noted, and it should be clear to the everybody. Okay, with this understanding, now we can read the above diagram. I hope it is clear. I picked up this particular clipping from the newspaper. How they are communicating to the common man. X-axis is the duration, time, 1982, 2010, 15, 18, something like that. In Y-axis, annual rainy days. That means total rainy days, total days are 365. Out of 365 days, in a monsoon pattern like India, you can see hardly we have a rainfall 0 to 40 days. And this they are referring into in the context of Mumbai. Now, if you look at this graph very carefully, in 1980 to 2010, highest number of rainy days occurred in the year 2010 and 2011 they call it as, and those days are 35 and 30 days. Okay, 35 and 30 days highest number of rainy days from 1980 to 2015. And the lowest rainfall, can you imagine, in the year of 2014, only 2 days. That means only 2 days they got rainfall in that particular year, 2014. That means they may got 2.5 mm or more or equal to this, only 2 days. Then can you imagine that what will happen to the entire year? That is the one of the dry year, drought year we can call it as. And another extreme is it has happened in 2010 and 11, highest rainy days, then immediately 2004 we got just 2 days. So this is the order of the day where we can have this information. Rainy days, number of rainy days is so important in our present analysis. Okay, then slowly we go to the why stormwater modeling is required. So just you can see, to design effective stormwater drains to avoid flooding or to identify flood-prone areas in the new urban areas, to understand system inflow and outflow characteristics in existing and new urban areas, to understand stormwater network efficiencies in existing urban areas, etc. These are all or most important is to propose or incorporate various flood mitigation measures in existing urban areas. So this particular hydrological modeling is useful for under these circumstances. Okay. Now next, I don't want to give an example. We have only half an hour with us, and the urban flooding is a different from riverine flooding. So one should understand here, urban flooding, it is a triggered when surface runoff exceeds the capacity of drainage system. That means when you want to divert rainfall into the drains, if drains are designed under capacity, what will happen? It overflows. That overflow also creates the flood in the roads and all those things. Okay, so which happens when heavy rainfall pours on sewers with the limited capacity, or even medium rainfall falls on poorly planned or operated drainage system. What do you mean by operated drainage system? Are you really operating any drainage system? Operated drainage system is there something related to maintenance, interconnectivity of the drains. If the connection is not properly maintained, what happened? Then the joint will blow up. A lot of storm water will come out on the roads. Okay, poorly maintained, poorly planned means we have not designed properly. Okay, so lot of siltation is taking place, lot of plastic. I have seen some of the stormwater drains when we have opened up the manhole, and we are surprised to see that lot of coconut shells are there in that, lot of plastic, unused material, plastic material. They are using as a dumping, waste dustbin sort of thing. Simply they open up the manhole and put it all the material inside so that nobody can see. So these things are very, very important, maintenance and those things. Design aspect is one thing, and other aspect is operation and maintenance is very, very important. As I said, I have listed out the hydrological modelings, model softwares. Here I can see only related to the stormwater flooding modelings, which are very popular entire the world. We have a US EPA public domain, and we have a DHI commercial software, Bentley, StormNet, Wallingford tools, and XPSW. We got an opportunity to work with the two softwares, and even though NIH is having a DHI MyCarbon, at Kakinada Center we worked on the first and last two, both the public domain and commercial software. So these two are engine is same, but the working style is a bit different from each other. So these are all the very popular softwares. So now I want to skip the details about SWMM, how it works and all, because I want to give more feel about the case studies, how we have done. Then I want to skip 3 slides. Of course, the SWMM is capable of tackle with the quantity as well as quality also. Then the limitation of SWMM is this particular software is not applicable to large scale non-urban watersheds, not applicable to forested areas or irrigated cropland, cannot be used with a highly aggregated rainfall data. That means more than daily rainfall, there is no much use. Okay, monthly, weekly, yearly, we cannot use. There is no use basically. Okay, then these are all the some of the limitation of the software. Let me straight away go to these are all the hypotheses, which these are all the small catchments where rainfall occurs, the entire runoff joins into the stormwater drains, then again it will join to the weir, finally outfall. Sometimes, low-lying areas, we used to pump the runoff from one place to other place. So their pumping mechanism are set. So a nutshell, I can call it as, when anybody is working on stormwater modeling, it is in a combination of hydrology and hydraulics. This is a classical combination of the two subjects together. Then we can effectively solve these issues. Okay, I have some, these are all the basic equations which are used to solve the kinematic wave equation, diffusion wave, fully dynamic. Okay, these are all the basic equations we used in this modeling. Then we have the unsteady. Yeah, now look at this in a better representation of the same diagram here. This is the rainfall event. It is a falling on the catchment, as it is urban catchment. Then we call it as converting rainfall into runoff could be the hydrological modeling, and routing of this runoff through these drains become a hydraulic model. So these two combinations are very, very crucial in that. Okay, same thing here. And input wise, design storm are routinely used for designing the storm sewer system. A design storm is a hypothetical storm with specific duration and return period. Okay, then the information of design storm is conventionally presented in the form of depth, duration, frequency curves, so that we can use directly in the model. So this is another better representation, like rainfall is converted into effective rainfall. That means after deduction of the losses, this effective rainfall only produces the runoff. Okay, for that there are various methods. SCS curve number method is there. Unit hydrograph technique also there. So like that we can do that. That routing mechanism, we can use the simulations here, routing and all those things. This is the hydrograph. This straight away now goes to the here. I don't want to read the big flowchart here. Due to limited time, you can see urban flood processes. So there are natural reasons for man-made regions. Finally, both are causing up to here urban floods. Just we can see man-made, global warming, urbanization, land use changes. Okay. Then similarly, drainage structures, low permeability, increased surface runoff, straight away coming to the high risk vulnerability zones. So these things are the factors which are directly or indirectly associated. Not only one town, any town, most of the activities are similar to this under flowchart. So we have a few case studies with us, and one is a Hyderabad city. I put it in a category of developing city, and very new upcoming city like Amaravati, capital of Andhra Pradesh. Nothing is there. You have a free privilege with you to design your own storm drainage network, keeping in view the future highest rainfall events you can design. Because other towns, cities, it is not possible, because already city developed. If you want to change any designs, it's highly impossible, right? I'm giving an example of fully developed city like Chennai. Even though I am coming out with alternative designs, who will implement in Chennai city? There is no scope. Nobody will allow. Lot many issues, political or whatever you call it as. Okay. So in another city like frequent urban flooding, the town itself every monsoon is going to be flooded because the geographical location is like that. One side bounded by river, another sides bounded by canal systems, and whatever rainfall occurs on the town, there is no drainage to enter into other places. So whenever high rainfall is there, water levels in the streams and river is very high. So whatever water is collected within the town, it is absolutely accumulated. So 4 different scenarios: developing city, upcoming city, fully developed urban city, frequent urban flooding. So these are 4 real life situations. Okay, which is most easier is upcoming city designs of stormwater become a much easier than to solve the flood mitigation of other cities. Okay, now look at this. This is the greater Hyderabad, and the most important, why I have plotted here. This is what we stand our city here. these things are especially in municipal corporation, they don't call it as a watershed names, but they call it as a zone 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. for administrative purposes. One of the most interesting point in Hyderabad is basically they have classified these administrative zones based on their watershed boundary. Then we named it to administrative boundaries. Nowhere you can see such type of a combination. They simply classify this is the zone 1 and 2. Then hydrologists start working on DEM and superimpose your administrative boundaries on a subwatershed. These two are different boundaries. Then we have a lot of issues. But in Hyderabad city, the administrative zones are almost equal to the sub-basin boundaries, so that the water resources can be handled very, very effectively in these areas. That is one of the positive things which you have noticed when you have done some case study at Kukatpalli area. This is schematization of the entire drainage network, and we could able to finally come out this type of observed and modeled rainfall events in that particular area. And this is the, as I said, you will not get any measured discharges in the town, but here in this case we have installed our own equipments to measure the water levels in the stormwater drains, and we also measured the short interval rainfall data into the field. With the help of the both unique observations, this type of modeling is only possible, because validation of the model is very, very important. The entire exercise where we did in this particular sub-catchment here, this is a catchment here. I will give an example. Suppose on this particular watershed, X quantity of rainfall is falling on this surface, and finally the whatever rainfall is occurring on this catchment, finally entire water should reach at the outlet after satisfying your water bodies inside or any other storage structures, everything. After that, entire water will come over in this situation. Suppose there is no water body at all in this subwatershed, then absolutely rainfall minus some losses is equal to the flow which you are observed at this particular point. So the same phenomena we can observe in terms of hydrograph. Before our interventions, before any hydrological modeling exercise, we got this type of scenario. What is the scenario? The red color is the total inflow, okay, and outflow is the pink color. Total inflow is red color, that is coming from the rainfall straight away, and outflow which we have observed from the the basin outlet. The in between we have the green color hydrograph is nothing but a flood water. If your catchment is not properly designed and you have issues of any stormwater interconnectivity, flooding issues in that particular drain, and your hydrograph look like this. Okay, this is your inflow hydrograph, this is an outflow hydrograph, in between you have the flood hydrograph. So after intervention, after hydrological intervention, and that particular authority requested NIH, can you suggest some some modification or some new links, etc. See that the green should not come into the catchment at all. That means whatever rainfall is occurring, you should equal to the outflow. Okay, accordingly we have changed some of the designs, assuming that in this particular watershed there is no water body. Okay, then next slide you look at it. So we have designed some of the stormwater network, and we have shown them that if you adopt this type of proposed drainage network, you will not get any flooding in that particular watershed. Now you see the total inflow is almost equal to outflow. So whatever rainfall is occurring, most of the things is coming out through their drains without creating any flooding. Safely it is reaching the outside. So this we have checked with the 5 years design storm rainfall event. So this is the one way of checking what I have done in this case study. Already developed city, somebody has already designed it. After 20 years, the department want to check whether their existing stormwater network is safe or not with the coming high intensity of rainfall. Then they asked, can you give some suggestions by changing it to small, new links or diverting some links to downstream or whatever. So we suggested some mechanisms and we ensure that the inflow is equal to outflow. That is one of the case study we did for Hyderabad city near Kukatpalli area. Then another case study which talks about this case study, Amaravati. This is the Amaravati river, Krishna river. This is the proposed capital area. And here you can see in a better picture here. The hatched portion is the capital area region, and we have the another stream which is passing middle of the new capital area is Kondaviti Vagu, and this Kondaviti Vagu confluencing at Krishna river having a catchment area of 421 square kilometers. So whatever you want to plan stormwater drains, make sure that not only the water which is falling within the capital area only creates flood. No, even outside of the capital area, big catchment area is here. Even whatever flood created in this area also comes into the capital area, and these two flood water should be reached safely to the Krishna river. That is a challenging task. Otherwise, upstream flood will come into the capital area. Then, how safely we can discharge our flood water into the Krishna river? That is then a major challenging issue. But in this case, the bed level of the Kondaviti Vagu is almost equal or sometimes below the bed level of Krishna river. What will happen? Because if some small flood comes, backwater is to come to the this particular Kondaviti Vagu. Then that time Krishna river is fully flooded, and all of a sudden we got Kondaviti Vagu heavy rainfall. Then you tell me the situation, how the flood water will reach to the Krishna river because of the hydraulic conditions. Therefore, they proposed some pumping schemes. Here you see 160 meter cube per second, here 350 meter cube per second. This structure has already completed. So whatever flood water is created, entire flood water reaches in the confluence point. Physically, they are pumping that flood water into the Krishna river. That is what they are planning into that. This is a very typical situation to handle the urban flooding. So things are going on here, and this is what initial work I am sharing with you. So I happen to be a member in this committee, so that I could able to visualize the gravity of the issue. So therefore, I want to share this particular slide with you. Then come to the third case study. Look at this. This green color is a Ganga river. This side, entire river. And we have the one canal here, another side canal, Patna side is located here. Then that particular municipal corporation requested, so this is anyway going to be flooded. Okay. Then they asked which rainfall creates how much flooding. We should provide a map with respect to rainfall. Then we asked, the first information is, can you give the contour information of 1 foot? Then we can give you a better output so that you can use it for various purposes. So with that advantage of that particular DEM, we have prepared this output. Now you can see. This output is related to rainfall and flood. The background is satellite image. 2 years return period, surface flooding 126.818 hectometers. Okay, then 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years. So these maps are very, very useful. Okay, so their future infrastructure, definitely they won't use this area. Even though it is a vacant land, they won't put their infrastructure in these areas. For this type of information, this type of maps should be available in most of the cities, so that some extent we can solve the urban stormwater problems. Then third case study is the Chennai. So I will finish it within 10 minutes, this case study. And Chennai case study, I will show the study area and look at this area. This is not fully based on the administrative watershed, administrative boundaries and watershed boundaries are not equal for all watersheds. Okay, except one it is matching here. This I have demarcated, Otteri Nalla. This is a small drain having a catchment of 30 square kilometer area. They want to solve the flood issue in this particular area. This is the area where they used to get lot of flooding and a lot of inundation is taking place. So here we want to test our hydrological model, how to solve this problem of stormwater flooding using some hydrological model. So that is our challenging task. To solve the issue, we have borrowed the tool which can helpful to us. So straight away, when we have initiated this work and we are looking for a data, nothing is available except the IMD rain gauge station, which is very close to this area. That is only rainfall data, rain gauge data available with us. Okay, then we have realized that if you want to do hydrological model in a small scale basin, then we have to invariably have the observations. So immediately we have designed our own network of observations. Like these are all the rain gauges. We have established the rain gauge network. Okay. Then we also established automatic water level recorder in this small drain, 2 locations. Okay. So we started monitoring the water levels as well as rainfall over a period of 2 years, so that we got it a good number of spells. And before finalizing this network, we also taken into consideration of the hydrological boundaries. Then I superimposed our hydrological boundaries. So this is our catchment, and catchment outlet is connected with the Buckingham Canal. Buckingham Canal is connected with the Bay of Bengal, and nearby we have another stream called a Kuvam River. So why you required all these things? Because any basin, if somebody is working, one should have an idea about hydrological boundaries. Not only boundaries, we could also see upstream any reservoirs are there. If any reservoir allows their excess flows, whether that flows will reach into this area or not. There are so many things associated. Now, and especially if you see Kerala floods, Chennai floods, after the floods, the government constitute a committee, and the committee comments, if you read, this particular sentence is always common. These floods are due to sudden releases of upstream reservoirs. The common sentence I found many reports. So these things also we have to consider. Okay, if you are not considering, you are talking about only the rainfall which is falling within this catchment. No, this is not sufficient. Okay, so this is our hydrological boundaries, and same watershed I have demarcated into 86 micro watersheds based on the local drains as well as DEMs. Okay, similarly I converted into this particular basin into nodes and link model. Okay, then I started working with this model. Then you can see my model testing. The observed, this is the observed rainfall, this is a model water level, and this is observed water level in the Nala. Then after couple of trial runs, there is a consistently the observed one is less and computed is more always. Could you able to see? So why it is happening consistent? Because when you are work in the model, you assume that a beautiful cross section is available for the model. Say 1 meter into rectangular water, storm water drain, very nice slopes and all the cross sections. That was we are that particular section is we are giving to the model. But whereas in the field there is a lateral some pipes are associated, some sedimentation is taking place, or some coconut shells are there. All are obstructing the flow mechanism. Therefore, we noticed that the observed water level is always less than the model water level. So these type of things we could able to observe. Similarly, we have run the long term also. Couple of 2 days continuously spell is there. Once we got in Chennai, that also we have simulated. Same thing is observed here also. So later on, finally, why we did all this exercise? we want to suggest some flood mitigation measures in this particular area. After working on various aspects, we could able to give the flood warning systems based on the stormwater drains as well as the major nallas combined together. Okay, then I don't know whether the animation will run or not, but I would like to stop it here. Now look at this. This is one of the proposal we have given to them. If you want to control flooding here, we have suggested them to divert water from this Nala to this Kuvam river. This percentage of water, when you compare with the Kuvam river, it is very small. Okay, because this Kuvam river doesn't have much effect even you divert the water, but here you will get the lot of reduction in the flood. That's why we propose the link. Then they asked us, can you say in terms of hydrograph that how much peak will be reduced, how much of water will be diverted. Then this is the one of the classical output which model calibrated validated model provided this output. This is the rainfall with the diversion of the channel, that means proposed channel, and without diversion. Without diversion, this is the flood hydrograph in the main Nala. After diversion, this is the hydrograph. So with this confidence, they could able to execute in the field, and they executed in the field and they reduced the urban flooding in this particular area. Okay, so this is the one of the study we did, and look at this. This is what I am talking about. It should be supposed to be like this, and later on so many things will come unknowingly or knowingly, lot of debris and all those things. Okay, then some of the photographs I will show you to check your DEM validation is very necessary, and also show some, can you imagine if any drain is like this, how the stormwater will move from this drain to downstream. So they literally use, before monsoon, they remove all the material like this physically. They put it and transfer to some other area and make it drains like this. Then only Chennai is surviving with this type of cleaning mechanism. There is no option right now. They are adopting this technique only. Before monsoon, they do all this type of works. Okay. And these are all some of the instruments like tipping bucket rain gauge here. And we have installed the automatic water level recorder, which I have shown in my network design. Here, there is no current meter, nothing is there. It is only a bubbler type, water level record. Every 15 minutes in the drain, I will get the water level. And it is dumped into the data logger. Monthly once I will go to Chennai and collect the data from the logger, so that during flood time the water will up to the boundary wall here. Can you imagine such a huge water runoff will generate in this Nala? So that type of water levels we could able to collect with the help of observed and data. This type of solutions are possible, and which is more effective solutions in the field. Okay. So this is I liked it, this statement where anybody interested, any research scholar or faculty member are working on various consultancy projects or designs and all, integrated macro flood and micro flood studies in urban areas had to be initiated to address the urban flood issues in many cities in India. Even though your city is small, then you should have a bigger catchment. If any water is coming from that particular catchment also we have to consider, and flood modeling should deal with the macro and micro level together, then only you will get the feasible solutions. So these are all some of the photographs which were picked up recently, floods in Chennai. After our study it has happened actually. So with this I stop my lecture is almost 1:10 here. Few 5 minutes we can focus on some questions and any clarifications. Thank you very much for all the participants for your patience to hear the guest lecture on the online mode. I know it is a bit difficult for me as well as for you also. Please bear with me, and please you can ask any questions. Thank
Really,
you,
it's
organizers. Thank you,
wonderful
organizers.
lecture, sir. It is very informative. You have covered all the
Yeah.
three case studies, very big case studies: Chennai, Hyderabad, Patna, Amravati, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very informative. I now request participants, you can ask your questions, please. So you can ask directly, unmute yourself and you can ask.
Yeah,
I think
that is
it's
also
better if you can ask directly instead of writing on chat box.
Yeah.
Chat box. So there are few questions in chat box. Someone asked, Mr. Surinder is asking that in case of ungauged basin, how to predict the accuracy of developed flood modeling?
Yes, there are now under hydrology projects, Central Water Commission has developed some empirical equations to estimate the flood peaks using those rational formulae, which is useful for very specific area alone. Okay, entire India, they have been classified into various zones and they have given some empirical equations. So wherever you want to have a flood in ungauged basins, you can have those equations. That accuracy of that particular equations are very, reasonably good. Okay. And as you said, whatever model you are using, how you will get the confidence? That means you can attempt 2-3 ungauged model equation. One is empirical, another one is distributed. When a combination of two models are applied in ungauged basin, your confidence levels increases and also you have the accuracy levels also increases. That way we can tackle the flood situation in the ungauged basin. That is my suggestion, because this is one of the question quite frequently asked by many people. Yes, a combination of two models will give you the better result. That is my. Yeah, next
Sir,
please.
sir, thank you, sir. Satyaji Rao, sir.
Yeah.
And very good presentation that we had, and a couple of slides, like around 82 slides, covered in almost in 1.5 hours. It's very great thing actually. The mainly that I would like to know, what are the data sets and the data sources that you are utilizing for all your models from GIS, exclusively from GIS and remote sensing database?
Yeah. Okay. Let me say that I will categorize, two ways. One is from the departments on the government side. The artificial drainage detail they should provide, like stormwater layout map, their cross section, longitudinal profiles, and invert levels. That means that bed level, etc. All we have to collect from the departments. Okay. Apart from that, I need a highly accurate DEM I required, because overland flow starts from that. Okay. Apart from that, I need a good accuracy of land use, land cover, soil information. Okay. Then I need hydrological measurements if at all available. Otherwise, people are nowadays, I have seen, based on these two data sets, they generate some flood events and they compare with the historical flood markings. Okay, 2005 rainfall they will take and they will estimate flood at particular point. They will compare with the some flood levels. Okay, this is my limited comparison of the flood marking. So these are all the input data sets are required to tackle this type of hydrological model, which takes care about stormwater flooding. These are the basic input parameters. Okay.
Okay, sir, if you go back to your slide number 67 or somewhere 69, when you talked about some kind of model.
Yeah, 69. Am I right? This one 69. Are you talking?
Yeah. So you have, yes. This is the model which you have created in XP SwimIS.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So here, these are the nodes, the red color nodes and green color nodes, which are all connected some kind of, you said that these are all drain pipes, right?
Yes.
But when you see various drain pipes like this, and what is the critical storm duration for all these pipes, because that may not be same when you see the hydrological analysis by taking 30 year or 50-year rainfall events, and your model gives anything like that. What is the particular drain pipe? What is the critical storm duration?
Yes.
Or what is the return period for that?
Exactly. For that purpose only, I skipped the conclusion slide. Yes, if you read this one, I made it very clearly here. Okay. Look at this. The objective was to find out the inflow outflow hydrograph at various outlets and the water surface profiles along the stormwater. This was our objective, and read the conclusions from starting. Flood hydrographs have been developed at basin outlet with the tide and without tide for 2, 5, 10, 25 years return period of rainfall data. Okay, that means these are all the different what do you call rainfall events, we can call it as. Okay. Now,
so is that something like XP Swim? Yeah, is that XP Swim gives the dynamic simulation? Is that something at a time it shows for a 100-year?
You see, I have, because of my screen is not visible to you people, and if I display this thing, you can really see. Let me try this. I don't know whether you can see it or not. There is an animation I could able to share with you. It will integratedly it will do. I will show this plan view. Please tell me if it is you could able to see or not. Okay. Could able to see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your slides are actually PPT.
The PPT fine. I am displaying now a video.
Maybe you need to switch over your screen, sharing screens. When you try to share your screen, then you need to select the desktop option in your Teams.
Now it is visible? No?
No.
Same issue. There I have prepared one slide shows integrate whether it dynamic model you are talking is possible. Simultaneously, stormwater drains as well as the nala, both you can be able to see. That is possible. Yes.
So, sir, one thing, sir, like now when you give the input for this model, is it something like you provide some data sets for this XP Swim, or how do you give this actually? Because is that something, any idea of course that you will create and give the input as a file to that XP Swim or what?
I will create my own design storm, then that as an input to the model. I will create like that. IDF curves I will convert into design storm duration rainfall event. That particular event I will put on the model and I will test it. This network is sufficient or not.
Okay, that means like for one return period, one time that we need to run this, or is that...
Yes, exactly. This is the event based. You can call it as.
Okay.
Yeah. You are from?
I'm a fellow member of Institution of Engineers, sir, and currently working with international design consultancy Atkins Global.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Hello, organizers?
Yes, sir. I think there are no questions from participants. I think we can stop here, sir.
Yeah,
okay. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you once again for your nice presentation.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So participants, I think it's a lunch break. After lunch, we will sharp join at 2:30. So next session will begin at 2:30 today.